So, is Hezbollah declaring war on Israel? A second front from Lebanon. Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, clickbaited his speech of 90 minutes today, which I will never get back, for a whole week. This was the greatest clickbait since the local poll fake boxing YouTube matches against basketball stars and various MMA fighters that are way past their prime. Only difference is this lasted for a whole 90 minutes and literally was a nothing burger that wouldn't shame Jerome Powell in one of the Fed announcements about the interest rate hikes. This was boring, and I don't know where they got this Hassan Nasrallah from, but he definitely does not understand modern media. 90 minutes, my guy, nobody has that patience. This is the TikTok generation. You got to give us an 8 seconds. So let's talk about what happened today, all the main points, all the updates. So there's 3 things we have to talk about today. Number 1, obviously, I'm going to break down the speech of Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, and the mountain that birthed a mouse, pretty much. I'm going to talk about the U.S. visit. Antony Blinken is in Israel again, and why is that happening? And I'm going to give you an update about the Israeli progression in Gaza, which is nothing short of very, very impressive. So let's start with the speech. So the speech of Hassan Nasrallah, you have to understand where it's coming from. Hassan Nasrallah is in a little bit of a pickle. Now, he was really embarrassed by what happened. Let me explain. He's sitting on the border of northern Israel with Hezbollah for the past 20 years, getting very minimal achievements. His greatest achievements was getting Lebanon into a war, which it is still recovering from in 2006, and claimed victory because Hezbollah as an organization survived, but Lebanon as a country, as an economy, basically went down the drain. So he never managed to inflict any major pain on Israel. And to see Hamas with much less weapons, much less funding, much less training, Hamas, the Gaza people, the grade A people looking at the grade B Sunnis in Gaza. Don't forget, they're Shiites. They think that Gazan Sunnis are basically grade B. Those guys have done what they've done. They outshined him, the superstar of the resistance against the Zionist movement. That's not even the worst of it. Because now, when Hamas is getting pulverized by Israel, and we'll talk about that in a second, Hamas is getting pulverized and about to lose, they're screaming for his help. They're going all over Arab TV media and screaming, hey, Hezbollah, Iran, Hassan Nasrallah, you promised us to help. Where are you? We need your help. Open the second front. We're getting slaughtered here. You're a traitor. They're basically cursing him out. And you can go and find these clips. So he was embarrassed by their success. And now he's embarrassed because he's considered a coward in the Arab world. He's letting the Gazans die. The problem is that Hassan Nasrallah is in a big, big bind here. Even though he wants, ideally, to open up a second front and go at Israel and cause some pain, the problem is twofold. Number 1, he has lost the element of surprise. He didn't do it on October 7th, so doing it now, when the Israeli military is all across the northern border and all the people have been evacuated, it's not ideal. Even greater problem is that he's now the custodian of what's left of Lebanon. Lebanon, the beautiful country, the gem of the Middle East, the most beautiful coastline in the Middle East of all time. This beautiful, amazing country that was ravaged and destroyed by wars and proxy organizations and terrorists. He's now in charge of rebuilding what's left out of the rubble. And that's not an easy task. And the last thing these people need is another war with Israel. Because Israel is going to go ham on this time. They're going to go ham. They're going to go crazy. This time, they're going to wipe out Beirut and bring Lebanon to the brink of destruction. They're not kidding around after what happened on October 7th. So for him, he might survive a war with Israel like he survived in 2006. But the price Lebanon will have to pay is a huge price. And as a custodian of the country, as the guy who's in charge, I'm not sure he wants to take that decision. But the worst part of that is that he's irrelevant. He doesn't even get to call the shots. The people who actually get to call the shots are his bosses in Iran, because he's just a contractor. He's a proxy. Whether he'll admit it or not, probably not. He's a proxy organization, and the people who make the decisions are the people who are fronting him and paying him money. And those are the Iranian government and the Iranian people that pushing this whole proxy war. The problem is they do not want him to start the second front with Israel for now. Because for them, they're looking at Hezbollah as a major piece, as a major asset in the region. They're looking at Hamas as some disposable grade B people they don't care about, some Sunnis, expendables. Hezbollah is the strategic weapon they have sitting on the border with Israel as a serious threat and a serious countermeasure that's going to disincentivize Israel from attacking Iran. Waste it now on this war, you lose it forever. Because Hezbollah, much like Lebanon, will not be the same if they enter an actual war with Israel and the US. Don't forget, the entire freaking Navy is off the coast of Lebanon just waiting for them to pounce on them. So that is why he had to make today's speech to save himself politically, because he's not looking good right now in the Arab world, in the Shiite world, in the Sunni world. He's looking really, really bad. So this is the kind of the context of his speech. Now, his speech was embarrassing. I'm not going to lie. Beyond the fact we kid, about it being 90 minutes and so long and TikTok and everything. Yeah, okay. But let's talk about the actual speech. I actually had to take notes here. So this speech is really embarrassing. Oh my goodness. Okay. So let's go over it real quick. And again, this was the biggest piece of clickbait we've seen in global politics. He literally took a page out of, Logan Paul boxing, YouTube boxing, and delivered nothing. Nothing. After all this hype, live stream by Sky News, live stream by the and this is what you give us, nothing. Okay. So number one, the first thing he says is, we are not Hamas. We are the Hezbollah. Hamas is Hamas. And we are not envious of their so-called success. We're not envious. And all this talk about some anger between us and Hamas and some beef between us and Hamas is pure misinformation by the enemy. Which is complete horseshit. We know it's false. He's envious as fuck. And they're angry at him as fuck because he's not helping them. So there's a big problem between Hamas and Hezbollah. So that's number one. The second thing he says, which was also very important, he said, look, Iran and Hezbollah were not only not in charge of this, we didn't even know they're going to do this. We had no idea, ladies and gentlemen. We funded them, we trained them, but it was their decision. We had no idea. We were kept in the dark. Iran was kept in the dark. We were kept in the dark. We had no idea they're going to do this. Now, the reason he says this is to distance himself from this. Basically saying, hey, this was not us. This was not the Iranians. Don't look at us. Of course, he does it in a tone that's more combatant, militant, but he's really trying to cover his ass. And then he literally says, the battle is Palestinian. We are not a part of this battle. He literally said, hey, Hamas, good job. Good luck over there. At this point, the speech becomes a eulogy for Hamas because he's obviously not only not stepping foot in this, he's distancing himself from this, basically saying, hey, US and Israel, we had nothing to do with this, guys. He also tried to claim that Iran is not in charge of him and he has full independence, which I found peculiar. But one of the most horrifying things about his speech are not really strategic, is the way he interprets reality, because he actually had the guts to say that the October 7th massacres in Israel were heroic. And I don't think he understands the meaning of the word heroic, because when you shoot at babies and women and elderlies, that's not really heroic, but heroic, brave, and genius. And we celebrate it. I don't think he understands global PR, because that's not a good thing to say, Mr. Nasrallah. Now, he, of course, ignores the civilian casualties on the Israeli side. At some point, he says, well, that's the IDF killed them all. It's not the Hamas. There's literally GoPro videos that I suggest you don't look for on various social media in which you can clearly see that's not the case. And, of course, he goes on this rant about how Israel is so weak and how this exposed the weakness of Israel and how Israel is just like a web of, a spider web. You just touch it and it collapses inwards. The same thing he's been saying for the last 20 years, regurgitating his old speeches. Nothing really interesting. He was, of course, talking about the split in Israel in the public opinion, which is old news. I don't think he's updated because he's in the bunker. And I found it peculiar. He was sitting on a $4,000 chair in the bunker talking about how Palestinians in Gaza need to keep dying for the cause. But I don't think he understands that the public in Israel is not split anymore. Since October 7th, that split he's talking about that was actually the case, it's gone. The Israel public is united and standing behind their government, as flawed as it may be. So he's either misinformed or he's lying on purpose, whatever the case may be. That's not the reality. He also tried to claim that the help of the United States is indicative of the weakness of Israel because they need help of the US for Gaza? How weak they are. That's not why the US is here. The US took no part in the Gaza operation whatsoever. They're here to deter you and your friends from Iran from doing anything stupid, which clearly worked. So it's not really a sign of weakness. It's a sign of smartness, Mr. Nasrallah. The crazy part about it, I don't think he's seen the map. Israel has encircled Gaza. We'll talk about in a second. They're winning and they're conquering and they're doing it much faster than anybody anticipated. That slaughterhouse, that the graveyard for the Israeli soldiers, not really happening. So he's either misinformed again or he's just blatantly lying. Of course, he's not going to participate in this fight. That's the main point he made here. And he was saying, well, Gaza, the Gaza people sacrifices will continue and it will be in good cause. My guy, is this a eulogy for Hamas? What's going on? He then talked about how Lebanon 2006 was a huge, colossal failure for the Israeli military because he survived, which is true. He survived. Lebanon got destroyed. And look at the economy of Lebanon right now after that war. It still hadn't recovered. It's in the toilet. Yes, you survived, you parasite. But the country you're leeching off has been demolished. So I don't think it's a great success for somebody who claims to be the head of state now. Now, he also claimed that the normalization with the Gulf countries is now dead, which completes horse manure because the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, literally said 3 or 4 days ago that the Abraham Accords are fine. Everything continues. So the speech was clickbait, cowardly, boring, irrelevant, full of misinformation and misunderstanding, and long. 90 minutes of this. Oh, Lord. So now that we're done with the speech, you get to get the highlights in 10 minutes. I had to listen for 90 minutes, listen to this irrelevant, boring man, numb me to sleep. My greatest struggle with the speech was literally staying awake. But let's move on from the speech. Secretary Blinken landed in Israel, gave a speech, met with Netanyahu, all the usual things. The US is working towards a humanitarian pause. I want to explain to you that humanitarian pause really means a ceasefire, but it's branded better when it's a humanitarian pause. They need it politically because in the US, things are getting hairy. The support for the Israeli war is basically almost non-existent now. And Biden's a Democrat, and he has a big, big wing of Democrats who are really pissed at him right now. So the bare minimum he can do is try to show, hey, we're giving them humanitarian aid, we're having a humanitarian corridor, some ceasefire, we're giving them some food, and et cetera, et cetera. They might even give them some gasoline, even though they know it's going to Hamas. But they have to manage the politics internally in the US. So they have to push Israel to give Hamas a little bit more. But I don't think he's going to change anything strategically. Look, the reason is because the IDF progression, and that's the third topic I want to talk about here, has been nothing short of remarkable. If you look at the map, the IDF basically completely encircled Northern Gaza. It's finished. They carved it up like a piece of pie all the way from the entry level to the ocean, to the sea. They cut it off from the south completely through the main highway. They carved up the northern part of the north, and they're coming in from 3 directions right now, literally closing in on Gaza City, where the biggest defense point is for the Hamas headquarters. With air superiority, better armor, better weaponry, Navy superiority, and complete encirclement, so there's no supplies coming in, there's no logistic support, there's no communications. Hamas is finished. Hamas's chance to defend Gaza at this point, given what IDF just achieved, is non-existent. What they have right now is two things. They can cause very isolated damage point, like blowing up a military armored carrier and killing soldiers. They can activate IEDs and killing soldiers. They can cause pinpoint damage here and there and cause a lot of pain. But strategically, there's no way they can stop this. At this point, it's over. Their defenses have collapsed. What they can do and do effectively is play the victim, which they've done masterfully in every conflict, and they're professional victims. And they can scream, oh my God, genocide, make him stop, and appeal to the international community to put pressure on Israel to stop, which I think is the better chance for Hamas to survive. And they've been playing that angle. The problem is that IDF keeps intercepting phone calls that are really discriminating. The latest phone call we've seen released into the wild is a phone call between a Hamas representative and one of the heads of the hospital in Gaza that holds fuel and diesel that was provided from the UN. And the Hamas person literally says, hey, we're going to take the fuel and we're going to give you the hospital just a little bit, but we're taking like most of it. And the hospital guy says, yeah, sure, no problem. Go get it. So we have proof, Israel has proof, that the diesel that is given to the hospitals, that now people are saying, oh, the hospitals are running out of diesel. We have proof, because Israel actually got it. The Israelis went ahead and intercepted a call that shows that the gasoline, the diesel that was given to the hospitals was funneled into Hamas. And the crazy part about it, that Hamas is sitting over 0.5 ton of diesel right now. And the hospitals are really shutting down because there's no diesel. And Hamas is sitting there and saying, we're not going to give you any. We're not going to give you shelter in our tunnels. It's your problem, which is horrifying to me. Now, in my opinion, the calls for a ceasefire are strange because the Israelis have said clearly, look, we're ready for a temporary ceasefire. Give us our hostages back. We're going to stop for a few days. We're going to give you a humanitarian corridor. We're going to put in food in the Gaza Strip. We're going to put in water, everything you need. Let the hostages go. We'll call it off for a few days so we can, guys, regroup and everything. But Hamas is not giving a single hostage back. They're basically saying, nope. The bargaining chip of the hostages is more important to Hamas than seeing more people die in Gaza. They rather keep the hostages, let their own people die, and get some sort of a leverage on Israel. Now, the crazy part about it, that today we heard reports that Hamas snipers were literally shooting down kids with their parents who are trying to flee from North Gaza to South Gaza, away from the bombings. And there's video on X that's circulating that's horrific. So Hamas is literally not only telling people not to leave, actively shooting at people who are trying to leave. Horrifying stories. There's also stories, even crazier stories. Yemen is apparently shooting ballistic missiles at Israel, a country with 75% of poverty rate. This literally cannot feed its people. A walking, talking humanitarian disaster is starting a war with Israel that has nothing to do with Yemen. The perfect Iranian model. Iran walks in, destroys a country, Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, and then they use it as a terrorist hub while the entire country goes to shit. Lebanon, Syria, Yemen. This thing has to stop. I want you to pay attention to the difference between Hamas speeches that are done in interviews that are done in English and the ones that are done in Arabic. They're completely different, and it's kind of funny. In the English interviews, they'll say, well, the killing of civilians was not intentional. And in the Arabic interviews, they're saying, well, we're not going to stop. There's going to be more October 7th. We're going to do it again and again and again and again until we destroy the state of Israel completely, wipe it off the face of the earth, and kill every single Jew. Ceasefire, peace with these guys? I don't know. CNN reported today that nearly half the hospitals in Gaza, Shifa included, where they have the Hamas headquarters, are running out of fuel and basically operating in minimum capacity because of, lack of fuel and damage. Now, the damage part comes from shrapnel, and because they don't bomb the Israelis, they don't bomb hospitals, but they bomb near hospitals because Hamas literally puts their military installations around hospitals, in schools. So yeah, hospitals are damaged, not targeted, but you guys are giving away the fuel to Hamas. We got recordings of you saying this. It's just absolutely insane to me. Now, the craziest part about it is that Turkey and President Erdogan cashed in on this mess politically, did a whole speech, a whole rally, collected the political clout, and now, poof, where's Turkey? That's the Erdogan system. Collect the clout, cause a mess elsewhere, and survive another day politically in your country. Beautiful. Now, I want to give you a little bit more updates about what's going on the ground in Gaza right now. So the IDF is pushing northwest, and they're pushing on the parallel side, cutting off the entire south from the north. Right now, we have 20 killed in action on the Israeli side. 25% of Hamas fighters are dead. The breaking point of Hamas is close, but it's not there yet. So, but it's getting close. In the north, they're fighting through Beit Hanun. In the center, they're fighting through Zaytun and the Jabalia camps. That's where you've seen the big crater. That crater, by the way, it's a bunker penetrator, obviously because they had bunkers and tunnels there. But so far, the Israelis have targeted 12,000 military installations. And as they move on the ground, they create better intel for the Air Force. And they've actually got one soldier out of the hostages. They just need to collapse Zaytun and Jabalia to actually get in and start basically taking over completely. I think one of the main points that Palestinians have been disappointed on, because the Palestinians are used to being class B in the Arab world, and that's a fact. Ask any Arab person. The Palestinians are kind of, nobody cares about them. So they got betrayed by Iran, they got betrayed by Hezbollah, but they also feel like they got betrayed by Egypt because Egypt won't really open the border for them to go and pick up a few tents and set up in Sinai. They just took a few injured, but not really opening the border. At this point, it's over for Hamas. The bottom line, IDF is moving forward. Hamas stronghold is about to collapse. The advance pace is a few miles a day, which is methodical but extremely fast. Once the IDF hit the sea, hit the ocean, and completely cut off the north from the south, this is the point where it's over. It's now a full blockade by the IDF. And at this point, the days of Hamas is numbered. And now that we know that Mr. Nasrallah from Hezbollah is not going to get into this because he's just too in a big of a political problem, it's basically a done deal. Now it's just a matter of time until the Israelis take over, kill Hamas, and take over the Gaza Strip. Congratulations, Hamas. You have caused nothing but death, destruction, and mayhem. And may you will be remembered like a fart. Smelly, disgusting, and forgettable. I'll see you in the next video.